what they came for. We gon' take it up from last year. Shoot on my shot, boy, I'm long range. Me and the team on the same thing. Stayed down, never switched up. Only thing changed was the game. I'm in the zone now. Nothing can change what we on now. When I pull up, know it's going down. Foot on the gas, ain't no slowing down. Aiming for greatness, no settling. Kick down the doors, they won't let me in. Taking no else, yeah, I gotta win. Watch me kick down the doors, they won't let me in. Who running the game now? Foot on the gas, can slow down. No, my team, we holding it down. We know we running it now. Watch the game change. Watch the game change. Watch the game change. Watch the game change, yeah. On me. Tell them that's life, yeah, it's still love it. I'm taking a shot for my enemies. I can't waste no more time on my energy. I know they know I got it on lock. Go against me, that's a long shot. Cause I'm counting wins all around the clock. Never doubt me, boy, I don't stop. Who do you feel when they make you the monster? I am not scared of none of you imposters. Taking the lead now while they watching. Think you should leave now while the option. Taking no else, yeah, I gotta win. Watch me kick down the doors, they won't let me in. Who running the game now? Foot on the gas, can slow down, no.
Welcome to another edition of the It's Cavalier podcast, powered by Mellow Seltzer. Ladies and gentlemen, the Cleveland Cavaliers do not appear to be done just yet after acquiring the services of DeAndre Hunter. They are in the market for more front court depth after trading away George Niang and Caris LeVert, and could be looking to the buyout market to address some of the needs that they have. And one name that continues to be discussed is that of Ben Simmons, the mercurial talent who has just been given the opportunity to pursue his next endeavor. Per Shams, the Brooklyn Nets, along with Simmons, have agreed to terms on a buyout. That is right. Ben Simmons has finalized a contractual buyout with the Brooklyn Nets to become a free agent, which is reported by Shams. He's going to meet with the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Los Angeles Clippers starting as early as today to decide where he will suit up. Now, here's the thing. I get it. Whether you feel like Ben Simmons is a nutcase, got mental issues, or doesn't care about playing basketball at the highest level, only cares about money, things of that nature, this just makes too much damn sense, in my opinion, to not at least take a meeting with Simmons and see where his headspace is. He would feel a need. He would particularly come cheap and gets the opportunity to not only potentially add to a championship contender, but rehab his monetary value in hopes of securing another lucrative payday after this season. Probably not with the Cavs, obviously, but it could be a win-win for both parties involved in a scenario that would see both Cleveland and Ben get what they wanted. For Ben gets the opportunity to possibly win a championship, can, play a big role or a small role on a contender, see that he could add value, and for other teams to see that he can do the same. And for the Cavaliers, they would get much needed depth in the front court. And, depending upon where you play him positionally, you would be able to throw some pretty versatile lineups out there. And here's the thing, and I understand it. People are already asking about the position. What position would Ben Simmons play? Ben Simmons, is he a point guard? Is he a forward? Is he a small forward? Things of that nature. And I understand that. So if you look at where he has played the bulk of his minutes in his career, it's basically the point guard or nothing. And that is holding true this season. This is Ben Simmons right now. This is his minutes distribution breakdown. He has played 100% of his minutes at the point guard position for the Brooklyn Nets this year. But here's the thing. Ben Simmons can do many of the things that you would require out of a big man. He can operate and roll in a pick and roll set. He can set DHOs. He is an effective rim runner. He has money out in transition still, and still a lob threat out there. Yes, there are issues in terms of spacing. There are issues in terms of how he fits in the locker room. There are issues that could potentially arise. But this is about as boom or bust as it gets for buyout signings. And I need people to understand that the options are not flush in the buyout market. And I understand you don't want to potentially upset the chemistry that's the big buzzword that people love to throw out there right now with the Cavaliers. But considering they just treated two of the bigger chemistry pieces on the roster in Karis LeVert and George Niang, I don't think that is of the utmost importance to them. I think that they can balance it out. And acquiring Ben Simmons and playing him at the 4, which is fully capable of doing, and surrounding him with 4 shooters out there is certainly something the Cavaliers can do. I can already see some of the lineups that the Cavaliers could put around him. Of course, you don't want to play Evan Mobley with Jarrett Allen if you can help it. It would make most sense in playing Evan Mobley in lineups alongside Ben Simmons at the 5 so that you could put 3 additional shooters around him at the 3, the 1, and the 2. So it makes sense to do it from that standpoint. And I certainly think that you can make a case for Ben Simmons being able to add in that area. And when you watch some of what he is able to bring to the table, look, there's the DHO right there, rolling to the rim, dunking it home. That is something that the Cavaliers can use. That is something to me that would still be valuable off the bench. And it's not as if you would have to put him in the lineup right away. You're just seeing how it will work out. You give him a few minutes here and there, see if it actually works. Because as we know, the Cavaliers now have a void on the bench at that 4 position without Dean Wade being available right now and without George Niang on the roster anymore. Another dunk, as you see there. Ben Simmons is still capable. On both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. So I don't understand the argument for people who don't at least want to take a flyer on this. I think that we have to acknowledge that Ben Simmons, yes, there are some issues there in the past. And to me, that's the key word. Ben Simmons has played pretty effectively this season. He's putting up a pretty odd stat line, about 6 points, 5 rebounds, and almost 7 assists per game. Ben Simmons is, and you will hardly ever see that in today's NBA. And we know he's still a non-threat as far as spacing is concerned, but you don't really need him to shoot. Look at the ball handling. Look at that pass. Look at that pass. You can't tell me that the Cavaliers, if they surrounded him with 4 shooters, that he couldn't be effective as a drive and kick guy out there. I can't get past the thought process that would tell me otherwise, because I think that it's something that he could definitely bring to the table. And on the defensive end, he's capable of staying in front of his guys, right? He's still a very, very capable defender, can force opportunities, kick off fast breaks, get out there on the run, which Cavaliers love to do right now. So I just think this makes too much sense for the Cavaliers, at least not to take a flyer on. Look at that. Another DHO, cutting to the basket. Easy offense. You can't tell me that Kenny Atkinson couldn't scheme up a couple of ways to use this dude. You can't. It makes too much sense in my opinion. I don't know. The things that he would add to the table, in my opinion, the biggest things, defense. That is number 1. This is Ben Simmons on defense. We'll come back to the clips in just a second. But this is Ben Simmons on the defensive end. Right, the numbers bear it out right here. He's held his opponents to 47.2% from the field, which isn't a number that you want to beat the table over, but it's respectable in of itself. Sometimes you have to take into account the type of players that he's defending. Now, Ben Simmons has primarily played the point, but the bulk of his matchups have come at the forward, right? You can see that right there. 148 total defensive field goals opponents have taken against him, and he has limited them to 49.3%, 19 of 51 from outside the arc. These numbers, again, they're not all telling. Similar to what I said yesterday about DeAndre Hunter, the numbers are not always going to tell you the full story, because Ben Simmons plays for a pretty damn bad Brooklyn Nets team, or at least he did prior to finalizing that buyout. So just like DeAndre Hunter, I am very curious to see what a player like Ben Simmons could bring to the table, knowing that he has the body, the build, and the frame to be able to do so and impact the game. And Ben Simmons, let's not forget, he is a former all-defensive teamer. He's done that twice in his career. He is still very capable. I think people just They've seen what has gone on throughout the duration of his career with the off the court stuff, with the, not playing in Philly and not being able to suit up for long stretches and being injured due to the back issues. And they've just completely thrown out what could still be a very viable option off your bench. And Ben, especially if he's not making a large salary, and he most assuredly will not be with the Cavaliers or Clippers or whatever team that he decides that he's going to join next. I think this has just got boom bust potential written all over it. It could pay off big time this year for the Cavaliers, as I'm certain if he did end up signing with Cleveland, that there's absolutely no future prior, and we're not prior, but after this season with Cleveland. But this could be beneficial for both sides. Ben gets the opportunity to recoup some of the value, try and bolster his value for his next contract wherever he ends up, and Cleveland gets solid depth in the front court. And despite Ben playing the bulk of his minutes at the point guard position, all of them, honestly, this year, I still believe that if you can sell him on the role of the power forward position, you can still put the ball in his hands. He will play the power forward position, but that does not mean that he cannot have the ball in his hands. He can operate as a point forward. You can put him in lineups alongside any number of shooters out there, as long as you have somebody at the 5 who can shoot the ball, in which we know who that is. It's Evan Mobley. So if you have a couple of other shooters around him, you're fine, right? You get more off-ball opportunities for the likes of Darius, Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Ty Jerome, who's a pretty awesome off-ball shooter, Sam Merrill, Max Strus, etc. It goes on. DeAndre Hunter, right? Who's shooting basically 40% from three-point distance this season himself, and is a very viable catch and shoot threat. So you can't tell me that Ben couldn't give you some driving kicks and get DG and Donovan, two guys who thrive off of off-ball opportunities, even more looks. So I think it just makes a lot of sense. It really, truly does. And from an offensive standpoint, what does Ben Simmons add outside of the ability to facilitate, to play make? Well, he is pretty solid at the rim. As you can see here, Ben Simmons is in the 82nd percentile in effective field goal percentage, 55.4%. He's in the 65th percentile in terms of his shots at the rim, which isn't like, again, a number to beat the drum over, but it's respectable in and of itself. And you can see in years past, in Philly, it was basically 90+% and up. In this last 2 seasons with Brooklyn, 83rd percentile in 2022-23, and in the 95th percentile last season. So he can still clearly get it done when he gets to the rim. And he's not nearly the amount of he doesn't dunk it home as much as he used to, because he used to dunk everything. But he can still get it done with that floater, and he will throw down the occasional jam, as you saw in the clips that I threw together at the earlier portion of the pod. But he is still effective when attacking the rim. He is never going to be somebody that's going to be effective in the mid-range, because he has virtually no shot, and we don't even have to reference the three-point or spacing opportunities that he can bring you, because they are non-existent. But again, as long as you can sell him on the roll, say, hey, Ben, put the ball in your hands. You do one of two things. You drive and kick, or you attack the basket, right? All from an offensive standpoint. And then Ben is still a very capable rebounder. He is averaging 5.2 boards this year. He is a 7.6 career rebounder. You cannot tell me that Ben could not add to a front court area that was already lagging behind with the likes of Niang and Wade. And Wade is by no means a bad rebounder. I think it doesn't always show up because he gets a lot of tip outs. But Niang was by no means a good rebounder, in my opinion. So Ben Simmons would be an upgrade in both the defensive area, in both the rebounding area, in the playmaking area. He could add in all of those areas. And he's multi-positional from a defensive standpoint. He can literally guard 1 through 5. From an offensive standpoint, yeah, he's basically a point guard in a big's body or a big wing's body. But I think if you can sell him on that role, on that idea, he can do it. I think it makes sense. And at what it would cost you on potentially a veteran's minimum, I think it makes sense. You're not trading for him, so you're not sending out additional assets. So it's pretty low risk, in my opinion. And if it didn't work out, you can cut bait. And no, Ben Simmons is not necessarily going to, he's not going to scratch that itch for a true big out there, as you probably have heard some of the names that may be available, a la a Daniel Tice or a Mo Bamba. But none of these players who are available right now are essentially locks to be in a rotation, including Ben. So why not take the opportunity to bring somebody in who still has potential to add in a playoff scenario, in a playoff setting? And that's no disrespect to Mo Bamba or Daniel Tice, but I think of the three options, Ben could easily be the most playoff viable due to the ability that he can have out there and the effect that he can have out there on the defensive end. When you think about the potential matchup the Cavaliers would face in the East, in the Boston Celtics at the top, right? We're all expecting Cleveland to get, at the very least, get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think many people expect Boston to meet the Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals if the seeding shakes out the way that it is right now, with Cleveland being at 1 and Boston being at 2. I think that is very likely to occur. Not set in stone, but I think both of these teams will meet in the Eastern Conference Finals. And to have a defender the caliber of Ben Simmons on the roster off the bench, to me, that would definitely help to defend the Browns and the Tatums of the world. You already acquired DeAndre Hunter. Whether or not you're going to start him or place him in or have him playing a high-minute role off the bench, that gives you, yet another defender that you can throw at a team like Boston. And if the Cavaliers are able to make it to the finals, one of the teams that they could be facing there that we know have given Cleveland issues in the past is the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is something that you could potentially that could be very, very helpful against a team like that who presents a lot of length too. So I think that it makes a lot of sense for Cleveland to at least take to take a good hard look at bringing in Ben. And with that being said, I guess it's time to hop into the chat. Ringer Racing says, "Is Ben okay in the locker room?" Look, I get it. Ben has had his issues in the past, but I challenge any one of you to go out there and find me a recent article speaking to Ben's character issues in the locker room this year with the Brooklyn Nets. I challenge anybody in that to link that in the chat because I have not been able to find it. I don't think that is an issue right now. I think it's being wildly overblown. Yes, there are stories George Niang has put out there about his time in Philly and things of that nature. But that was like 2-3 years ago, almost longer. And he has been on the court relatively a lot more this season than he had in years past. 33 games this year, if I'm not mistaken, putting up 6.2 points, 5.2 rebounds, 6.9 assists, shooting 54.7% from the field and 69.2% from the free throw line, which, if I am not mistaken, is actually a career best for Ben. Ben is actually knocking the free throws down at a career best rate, but you have to add a little bit of a grain of salt in, or you have to add a little bit of context in that and take it with a grain of salt because he's not necessarily getting to the charity stripe as often as he had in the past. Just 0.8 free throw attempts this year. So take that for what you will. But again, for a guy that you could potentially bring in on a buyout type of acquisition, it makes a lot of sense. I don't think that you can necessarily just throw it out. And regardless of not if he spaces the floor or shoots or tries to take that shot, I don't think it matters. The Cavaliers don't need him to do that. They have enough players out there that can shoot. It's not really needed, right? If you have a dearth of shooters, the Cavaliers literally lead the NBA in 3-point percentage right now. They're top 5 in 3-point makes. Do you really think they need Ben to do that? I don't. Perhaps no team in the NBA is suited. Maybe Boston. If Boston were to sign him, they obviously wouldn't need him to take threes. But Cleveland definitely doesn't need him to do that. You just need him to rebound. You need him to defend. And it gives you the opportunity to get some of your best shooters more off-ball opportunities. Darius, Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Ty Jerome, Max Strus, DeAndre Hunter, etc. There are numerous reasons to bring him in. There are numerous reasons not to bring him in. But as far as buyout concerns and options go, I think this makes a lot of sense. And the chat, let's see here. Anthony Williams says, "We don't need him to shoot threes. He will be surrounded by shooters. That's not what will be needed from him. Defensively, second unit playmaking, buddy." Absolutely. That is what I think the Cavaliers could use him for. Defense, rebounding, playmaking. He can defend, in my opinion. I see some people saying down here 1 through 4. I think he can defend 1 through 5, but probably more so 1 through 4. My Holy King says Ben can come off the bench. Absolutely. 6TG says we really have the best environment to let Ben play tons of shooters around him? Yeah, you have legitimately the option to play him 10 to 15 minutes a game and just surround him with 4 shooters. You can stagger Evan Mobley's minutes to fit right alongside Ben and put Don, Darius, Hunter, Strus, Merrill, anybody out there, Ty. You can put a lot of different players around him to make up for the lack of shooting, even in a playoff setting. I just think it's wildly overblown. The Cavaliers stagger the minutes of Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, and Jarrett Allen is by no means a floor spacer, and they make it work with him. I think it's possible, although it's a little different because Jarrett is a center and Ben is not. Anthony Williams says about 10 to 17 minutes a night, depending on type of night, extend his minutes. Exactly. He's playing 25 minutes per game right now, or was for the Brooklyn Nets. He can still get out there, and he's done that in 33 games. He's had some really good performances this season. Andrew Polinder says Ben will feel like he's in heaven compared to the Nets. Absolutely. No Strays Entertainment says Cavs already have 2 bigs in the paint. Now you want to add Ben Simmons, only so much space in the paint. Good luck. You must be a Celtics fan, or I don't know. I'm not going to judge too much, but I'll just say this. If you've watched Evan Mobley at all this year, one of the reasons why the Cavaliers offense has been able to operate the way it has is because Evan Mobley has developed that 3-point shot. He is a legitimate floor spacer right now. Is he Kristaps Porzingis out there taking that 3-point shot? No. Is he Karl Anthony Towns out there taking that shot? No, but Evan Mobley is shooting 39.4% from 3-point range this season, and he's already by far overtaking his career high in terms of total triples made. He's made 50 total threes this year. That is by far the most. It's actually more than his last 2 seasons combined, and he hasn't even finished the season yet. He's only played 45 games this year, so let that sink in. He doesn't necessarily clog the paint in ways that he did. And it's a big reason why Cleveland has been so successful offensively. They're not the same Cavaliers. And so if you actually think objectively and not necessarily as a fan of the Boston Celtics, you see where I'm coming from. Anthony Williams says, will we be a small ball 5 goofy if you think you feel threatened? My God, I'm guessing that's in reference to No Strays. Christy Bobby says, Mac, what's the 4 guys you'd put around him where he's either the only other ball handler? The only other ball handler, guys that I would put around him. So I would put Evan Mobley at the 5. I would put Ben Simmons at the 4. I would put probably, if you're playing him with the reserves, I'm going to put Donovan Mitchell at the 1. I'll place Ty Jerome at the 2, and I'll put Sam Merrill at the 2, and I'll put DeAndre Hunter at the 3. I think that there are a number of ways that you can go with this. You can put Max Strus at that 3-2 if you're playing a reserve lineup. So let's say Don, Sam, Strus, Ben, Evan. That to me would work. I think that works. And you could interchange any number. If you want to put Darius and stagger his minutes with those guys, if you want to put Ty at the 1, you can do that. But knowing that you have Sam, knowing that you have Max, 2 guys who don't need the ball in their hands to shoot the ball, that's great. Knowing that you have a great catch and shooter now in DeAndre Hunter, that would work. There are a number of options. Hell, you can put Jalen Tyson out there. I don't know. Jalen's not necessarily a great shooter right now, but I think he will eventually develop into a respectable one. Isaac Okoro, let's not forget about him. Isaac, prior to that injury, was shooting basically 50% from 3-point range on low volume. I get that. That's a big argument against him still. But there are options that the Cavaliers have here. Now, if you want to make sure that spacing is counterbalancing what Ben brings to the table, yeah, you want to make sure that you have your best shooters out there alongside Ben. But you can make it work. That's my point. And it's not like you would have to do it for a large portion of the game. 10 to 15 minutes per night. Maybe you adjust, however, if guys are in foul trouble. But it's certainly possible. I think it's an option that the Cavaliers should definitely consider. And again, this is not just on the Cavaliers. Ben Simmons has a decision to make as well. They have a huge decision to make as well. And to me, I think it just makes a lot of sense. We shall see. Mona Moreland says, we just shed a big live live and die by the 3 makeup, and Simmons would bring that back. I don't think so. I think that when you look at I don't know if I'm reading that correctly. I don't know if I'm interpreting that correctly. We sent out George Niang, who was basically just a catch and shooter, shooting basically 40% from 3-point distance this year. He did have a uncanny ability to drive to the rim, but he did not add. He was a net negative defensively. He was a net negative from a rebounding standpoint. He has not the level of playmaker that Ben is. And talk about the piece that you shipped out in Karis LeVert, that really doesn't hurt you as much because you brought back DeAndre Hunter. I'm not really concerned about that. But as far as the spacing is concerned, I understand it, but I don't think if you're bringing Ben in, it's not like it's going to completely kill things, because the other position that you're trying to acquire on the video, not on the video, the only other position that you're trying to acquire is backup big, right? Third big, true big, somebody out there that can give you minutes at the 5 if Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen are in foul trouble. And the Cavaliers, unfortunately, outside of Tristan Thompson, who you don't want to trust in a playoff setting at this point in his career, they don't have that on the roster. So that's the only other position I think they're trying to address. It would be nice to get a stretch 4 at 5 type, but those are hard to get. Those are so damn hard to get, especially on the buyout market. There's not really any of those that I can think of that are available right now. Jay Quest says, yeah, that's tough. Wish we could have kept them. Karis and George will always, if you watched my stream yesterday, I had a nice little tribute to them, a couple of videos for each of them. And I think that each of them played their role here. They were both necessary additions at the time that they were brought in. George having a friendship with Donovan, being able to space the floor, and in at a time where the front court just did not have that ability after the Kevin Love era ended. And Karis, picking up the pieces after the Rubio injury and being brought over in a season that featured numerous injuries, especially to the guard group, whether you're talking about Colin Sexton, Ricky Rubio, etc. The Cavaliers kind of shuffled their options that season, whether it was Rubio, Karis, Rajon Rondo had a stint with the Cavaliers, Brandon Goodwin, if you guys remember his stint there. That was a season full of injuries. But I think at the end of the day, this just makes a lot of sense, in my opinion, especially considering what he could potentially bring to the table. It's not the same type of presence out there that George gave you. It's not the same type of presence out there that Dean Wade gives you. And it's certainly a lot different than what any other player on the roster is capable of with Ben. Anthony Williams says, I love it too. We don't care about regular season playoff depth. Yeah. Jay Correa says, why can't we get Mo Bamba? Mo Bamba is out there. Mo Bamba is an option. But what I'm saying is, while I would be okay with a Mo Bamba, I think what you have seen from Ben Simmons and Mo Bamba is that one is clearly still a more viable option than the other. If you're specifically talking about regular season depth, Mo Bamba makes a lot of sense as a backup 5. But if you're talking about playoff depth, guys that you can trust to actually play and give you solid playoff minutes, I know Ben Simmons has his issues, but to me, one of these guys has more playoff upside than the other, and that to me is clearly Ben Simmons. That's the way that I view it right now. I think that on court right now, Ben Simmons is clearly more viable than a Mo Bamba. Mo Bamba, I would accept that. Hell, I would accept Daniel Theis at this moment in time, I suppose. But considering that Mo Bamba, he's not really in the rotation right now, or he wasn't in rotation for the Clippers, if I'm not mistaken. It just is not somebody who I would count on to be a playoff, somebody who can give you real solid minutes in the playoffs. He's actually only appeared in 3 career postseason appearances. That came with the Lakers, where he played 3.3 minutes per game for LA back during the 2022-23 postseason. I just don't trust that Mo Bamba would actually be a viable option come the postseason. So yeah, Ben, to me, somebody who can give you defense, can give you rebounding, can give you playmaking. It just makes too much sense not to at least look at. My Holy King says Bamba is a goofball. Yeah, I guess in a sort of sense, Ben Simmons is as well, but for different reasons. Umano_2 says, well, it all comes down to how the Cavs sell it to him and whether he'll buy him. He might just want to be in LA. That is certainly a possibility. I'm not discounting that at all. Again, this isn't just on the Cavs. The Ben Simmons actually has a decision to make too. And while it may seem crazy for teams to be, trying to flood the gates for meetings with Ben, considering he's being bought out, This isn't necessarily out of the ordinary. Ben is just a high profile player still, and he's still somebody that people could potentially get good value out of, especially if it's coming on a veteran minimum contract, which it very likely will be. I don't see anybody handing Ben a lot of money. He's going to have to. He's going to have to build that value back up. And what better place to do it than a championship contender that is the Cleveland Cavaliers? I just don't see him. If he values like outside of the NBA stuff, like the weather in Los Angeles and just being in that area, I guess. But I think from a basketball standpoint, it makes too much sense for Ben to sign here. It truly does. No strays. Entertainment says, soon as Ben Simmons sees the Celtics, his back hurts. I think that would not necessarily be something that we want to see. But to me, I think that you're not going to be pressing him into a high minute role. You're not going to put too much stress on his body. And I think Ben, again, he's played 33 games this season. He's been relatively healthy compared to years past. So no, it'll be fine. Lacey plays _ gorilla tag says, Ben to the Cavs. I would love it. Cameron Johnson says, can you imagine the lineups we can run? I can right now. I think, I already spoke to it a little bit, but I think that you want to balance out the lineups that you have around Ben to feature some of your better shooters out there. We know that he likes to basically have the ball in his hands at all times out there. But even when he doesn't, he's still a good cutter, as you just saw there with the DHO opportunity where he's cutting to the rim for a dunk. He can still get out on the defensive end, force some transition opportunities on the fast break like he's doing here. Another jam. To me, I think that it again, I know I sound like a broken record, but I just think it sounds like a match made in heaven from a buyout standpoint. I think this is as good as it gets from a boom bust type scenario, and I'm all for it. And I know you guys have listened to me yap enough about this, but man, I really just hope that the Cavaliers pull the trigger and they're able to sell him on the opportunity to both rehab his value from a contractual standpoint and to give the Cavaliers much needed depth in the front court after sacrificing Yang and Karras to get Hunter in the building. Cameron Johnson says, Ben all around all that spacing. I would love Ben and Wade's secondary lineups. Also, I think Ben gives more insurance for Dean, even though they're both injury prone. I hope one can be there. Hey, this is the same conversation that we're having about not only Cam Johnson, but DeAndre Hunter too. If you guys watched the stream yesterday, I pointed out, I tried to be as transparent as possible. DeAndre Hunter has never played more than 67 games. That is his career best. He's played 37 this year. He played 57 last year, and his career high in games was 2022-23, the same season where they faced off against the Boston Celtics. To me, you have injury issues with all these guys. Dean, Cam, DeAndre, Ben, they all somewhat carry red flags from a staying upright standpoint. But I think it could balance out if you have a number of these guys, right? They are not all going to play at the same time, so they can't all be hurt at the same time. I think it's, it's got to balance itself out. It's got to level out at some point, to me. Wu Nakahara says Ben doesn't play basketball. I don't know how you could honestly say that. This is what I challenge you guys to do. I don't know how much Ben Simmons you've actually watched this season, but at the end of the day, he's played 33 games this season. He is literally giving you a near triple-double without a shot still. He is averaging at this point, as we speak, 6.9 assists. He is averaging 5.2 rebounds, 6.2 points. His career average is almost a triple-double out there, and he doesn't have a shot. I just don't see how you could think that he doesn't play basketball. If you're saying that he doesn't play winning basketball, he's not playing for a winning franchise right now. He's playing for the fucking Brooklyn Nets. I don't know what people expect out of him to do right now. From a locker room standpoint, as much as an issue as people continue to try and make that seem, like we've not really heard any other stories right now from this moment in time. We can talk about his time in Philly. We can talk about the time that he's missed due to the back injuries, but I don't think it's for lack of trying out there over these last couple of years. I think Ben has wanted to be out there, but back injuries are issues, right? They can really stymie your ability to be out there consistently, but he has done that this year. He's been out there this year and he's played some impactful ball. He's just playing for a franchise that is right now tanking. And I don't know what else we can really complain about. This is a buyout acquisition. What do people expect? That's what I'm saying. L Boogie says this is a perfect situation for Simmons and the Cavs. He'll add size as a 6'10" point guard and 1-4 defender. That's where I'm at. J Dye says fans really complain about everything. I'll sign Ben in a heartbeat. That's what I'm saying, man. Look, beggars can't be choosers. We're talking about the buyout market. The trade deadline is passed. So the additions that you can realistically make for what the Cavaliers have to offer from a monetary standpoint, it's not flush. There are not a lot of opportunities right now. Kirk Davis says, you think we have enough room to get Ben and Mo Bamba? I think they make one acquisition. I do not think they do both. I do not think they do both. Maybe they sign one of these guys and eventually convert a two-way like a JT Thor or a Luke or a Emoni. No, I don't think they sign both. Wu Nakahara says, all right, maybe I'm being emotional. I just can't shake out the feeling that we aren't getting much from him. And that's why you take a dart on him. It's a flyer, and it's a half a season rental at best. Ben will, if he signs with the Cavaliers, there's no way in hell they're going to sign him to a long-term contract because financially it's just probably not realistic for them to do so when they have questions right now with whether or not Ty Jerome is going to return, whether or not Sam Merrill is going to return, stuff like that. But it's an opportunity for a win-win for both. Just some guy from Cleveland asked, whose minutes would he take? I think it would be some combination of Dean's and George Niang's. George Niang is leaving a void right now. George Niang was playing, I think, like 21 minutes a game. I need to check on the exact amount of those. George Niang was playing 20.6. Yeah, about 21 minutes per game. 20.6 minutes per game for Cleveland this year. He is leaving those minutes behind. And keep in mind, that was with Dean Wade. A large portion of that was with Dean Wade still in the lineup. But the thing is, you don't really know what you're going to get because all of these minutes, they've been like staggered because there are points in the season in which Isaac has missed. There's points in the season in which Dean has missed. Obviously, Max Strus was out for a large portion of the season. So when things down the stretch of the season, it's going to be really hard right now to project what the actual rotation will look like. And as we get to the playoffs, who knows what the rotation will look like. But to have more options is always a good thing, right? And I think Ben is one of those options that would be helpful, but we'll see. We shall see. I think that's enough yapping for today. I really do hope the Cavaliers bring in Ben Simmons. And if he is brought in, I hope that you guys who are on the fence about it or are full on non-believers in this type of move, I hope that you come around on it. And I think Ben will probably sell you on it at the end of the day, but time will tell. As I always tell you guys, if you'd like to reach out to me, you know how you can. It's Cavalier_pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and more. If you want to be added to the It's Cavalier Discord chat, you know what to do. Leave a rating, leave a review, send me a screenshot. I said review to It's Cavalier53 at gmail.com, and I will send you an invite. If you're watching over on X, like I know a lot of you are, do your boy a favor. Go to YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe if you're not yet a subscriber, and hit that notification bell so you know when I'm going live. Go Cavs.